Hi everyone, this is Irina from PNW Beauty Pro. And today our third guest is Michelle Phung, the owner of Evoluxe Studio Academy. Hi Michelle.
Hi Irina.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. So Michelle is a very talented permanent makeup artist. Probably one of the best I've ever met.
Oh, thank you so much.
Welcome.
You're so sweet.
Welcome. So tell us more about what you do.
Yeah, so I'm a permanent makeup artist. I offer brows, lips, eyeliner, and I just got into like fine line tattooing as well about last year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I've been focusing more on that, as well as I offer trainings for all of the above services.
Okay, that is awesome. And what is your background?
Just like how I got started.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much my background is kind of funny because I got started, I went to college. So as a first generation immigrant, my parents were like, you need to go to college, you need to get that degree. So I went to college, and I always kind of knew that while I was studying, for my degree, I always knew that I didn't want to work in corporate or work for someone else, right? So I went and got my eyebrows done one day during my lunch break.
But wait, so your degree is in what field?
Marketing.
Marketing.
Yeah.
Well,
so I did finish school.
that should be very helpful, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It is very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And so after I got my eyebrows done during my lunch break on my sophomore year of college.
When was that?
That was, I don't even know, 5 years ago?
Okay.
4 years ago. I'm 26 now. Yeah. And I started doing the math, because I'm always like a person that like counts the numerical value of money, right?
And was it microblading, microshading?
Microblading.
Microblading.
Yeah.
How much was that?
I think she charged me $300 at the time, and it was in her like house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I drove up to Canada because back when I went to school in Bellingham.
Mm-hmm.
So it's only about like a 30-40 minute drive to Canada.
Okay.
And I actually went to her house to get it done.
How did you find her?
Just on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah, just on Instagram at that time. And I went to Canada for a lot of my services because Bellingham was such a small city that, you don't really, there's not much there.
Yeah.
And so I went and I got it done, and I, asked her, I was like, oh, how many clients do you take a day?
Mm-hmm.
And she was like saying like, oh, 2 or 3. And then I was like, oh my gosh, at $300 a pop, she's making $1,000 a day. And back then, before the whole inflation thing.
Yeah, and it was a good experience with your eyebrows. You liked them?
I think it was a mediocre experience, I would say.
Okay.
I got microblading, and I have combo and oily skin. And so it just faded really quick. And then also the way that she kind of explained her pre-care or went over the paperwork with me was just very vague, right?
How so?
I mean, there's no like website, there's no pre-care. She was just like, oh, she didn't tell me not to drink coffee or anything like that. It just came as is.
Okay.
And then after we finished, she didn't tell me she didn't tell me that microblading is only suitable for normal to dry skin as well. I mean, granted, back then microblading was just the more popular thing to do.
Yes, and probably she didn't do microshading.
Yeah, or like combo. Yeah. And so after the brows, they looked great at first, and then after they peeled off, it pretty much faded to nothing. And
Really?
Yeah, very, very light. And I asked her, I was like, oh, what's going on? It's really faded. And she was like, oh, it's because you have combo to oily skin.
Uh-oh.
And I was like, oh, you should have told me that before I spent the $300, But regardless, I went through the whole process and everything. But
did you do a touch-up?
I did do a touch-up,
Okay.
yeah. And so after I got my brows done, I, did the math in my head, and I realized, oh my gosh, I can make this money too. And so that's what I thought, right? Naively thinking,
so easy.
at age 19, right? And so I was working at a sushi restaurant during that time as a server. So I would drive back to Seattle on the weekends.
Okay.
And I saved up 6 months to take this class from this trainer who was traveling around the nation. A lot of trainers did that back then.
And how did you find that class?
Also on Instagram. So after
everything through Instagram back then.
Instagram was really hot back then, and so I just started looking at trainers on Instagram and being like, okay, who's the best one? again, back then it wasn't like a huge thing, right? So just kind of looking at their work and emulating that, oh my gosh, if I take her class, I can produce work just like her.
And what type of work she was doing, like technique?
Microblading.
Only microblading.
Only microblading.
Okay. And how much was the class?
It was $3,500 for 3 days.
3 days. And just one-to-one or?
No, it was a group class.
Okay.
And we actually got lucky because she didn't have that many students in this class. So I think there was only 3 new students, but she allowed her previous students to come back and, sit in on the class. Okay. So the class had actually about like, I would say 7 to 8 students. So she was like teaching us, but for my first training, I thought it was like a good training, but now looking back after taking so many trainings, I realized it was not a very good training.
What do you think was wrong?
Just in the attitude of the trainer. I feel like she was very, like, I would ask her a question, and maybe there are other students out there who might relate to this. When you take a permanent makeup training, that you ask the trainer a question and then they'll make you just kind of feel dumb to ask the question, because they'll be like, you'll ask a question and they're like, oh, we already went over this, or it's on the curriculum. Instead of going over exactly, it takes 2 seconds to explain that thing, and then so that was one of the things, and it wasn't very hands-on because she would just kind of be like, okay, you guys go practice on this banana for an hour, and then she would leave. Oh. Because she wasn't watching us. And then at the end, we had to share a model. So, I got one eyebrow, and then
Where did you find your models?
She found it for us.
She did? Yeah. Okay. Did you do a good job at least?
I really tried to.
Did it look okay?
She laid down the first pass for us, which really helped,
Yes.
And I think, like, at that time, I was like, oh, I don't want to do the first pass. But then I realized now as a trainer myself, those 3 days, you can only teach the students so much, and they really just need time to go home and hone in their skill and practice before doing the first pass. Because that first pass, it's very important.
And before that, you only practice on a banana?
And latex skin. Okay. Yeah.
So how was that, doing that on a real person?
It was scary. I think because she laid down that first pass when I did that training, I just only had to do the second pass, which was a lot easier. But I always tell all my students this, like, because they always ask, oh, what was your first model like? Because I always tell them, like, when you do a model with me, it's going to take about 5 to 6 hours. And they're all like, oh my gosh, that's so long. And I'm like, no, don't worry. That's the normal amount of time. Because the first client I took after that training was this more mature lady. She was a little bit older, and,
and still again, microblading.
Yeah, you're not supposed to really microblade on older skin. She's like 70 plus, right? And I didn't know, because my teacher didn't tell me that you're not supposed to work on diabetic clients. And she was diabetic. Okay. And so when I did work on her, she was just bleeding, just everywhere, She's a very sweet client. She actually still came back to me like years later, which I'm so grateful for. But that client, after I did that client, and I know a lot of students can relate to this, where you just feel like defeated. Yeah. Your first client. And you just want to like lock yourself in the room and cry and be like, oh my God, I don't know if I can cuss on here. Yeah. Can I cuss on here?
Yes.
Okay. You're like, I don't know if I fucked up her eyebrows. I messed up, but I literally had that feeling because it was horrible. But I was like, well, I already invested $3,000, so I need to
keep going.
Make money.
So during your training, you only had one model?
Yeah, half the model.
Not even full.
Not even a full model.
So did you at least map or?
So for the mapping, we pretty much, because we use a string method back then. So she would kind of like do the string method, the trainer, for us, and then I would draw one eyebrow, and then the student would draw the other. So you're not really getting to practice
much,
like weighing out the eyebrows and making sure it's even and all those things. So it was hard.
Oh yeah, I bet. So what was your next step?
So after I took the training, I practiced for about 3 months at home,
on latex?
On latex skin and
Okay.
stuff. Yeah. And I took that first model. I was in college at the time, very broke college kid. And I took her, I set up like a little curtain in my bedroom apartment. It's very illegal, by the way. You're not supposed to do this. Oh. But I was broke, what can I do? And so I set up a curtain and I laid a massage bed there, and I did like my first 3 or 4 models there. And then I realized, okay, I need to rent a room. And I took even though I had like no money in my account, I took the plunge to like reach out to all the lash studios and hair studios in Bellingham and rent a room for them to get the price estimate. And I rented from this girl named Amy. She's in Bellingham. She's very sweet. I'm still friends with her to this day. And I rented it for $400, and it was like a 60 square foot room. You can fit the bed and then one cabinet and then the chair, and that's it. And then I worked there for like 2 years until I graduated college.
And how much was the room?
$400.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So and you were taking clients there, but how was that after this not really good training to just do it yourself without anyone mentoring you? It's pretty scary.
Pretty scary, yes. So after I took that training, and the trainer would advertise like, oh, we offer unlimited lifetime support where you can message us and stuff, right? So I would actually message her, and then she wouldn't reply for a couple days, or 1 or 2 weeks, and then I realized, okay, I'm just on my own. And so I'm just the type of person that when I am focused on something, I like dedicate my life to it. And so I started like researching Facebook groups and going on YouTube. Back then there weren't a lot of YouTube videos for permanent makeup. So I started going on Facebook groups and, being active in the Facebook groups, asking questions, posting my practice skins, and getting constructive criticism from strangers around the nation, pretty much, who were also in the same boat as me.
Yeah, that's really, I found it very, very helpful.
Yeah, I love the Facebook groups.
Yes.
And then just started, and then of course, back then, online courses weren't really a thing, so just started looking at other trainers and saving more money for that. But at the same time, juggling, going to school full time, managing this business, going in debt.
That's amazing. And you were doing only eyebrows?
I was only doing eyebrows.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did she at least tell you where to buy your supplies, like what pigments to use?
Yeah. So she had labeled her own pigments and her own supplies. Okay. So she was like, "Oh, you can buy from us," Sure. But then, knowing me, I'm a marketing major, right? I know all about the things of labeling and all that stuff. And so I would buy certain things from her, like her microblades or her needles. But for pigments, then that's when I started to research more on Facebook groups of like, what's the best pigment out there and all that stuff.
So yeah, that was my question, like next question. If you met a lot of support in the beginning and probably not from the instructors, but from Facebook groups, and that's pretty much it, I guess. Yeah,
that was pretty much it. And then I just kind of self-guided myself in these Facebook groups and stay up, researching on like what pigments are good, what machine is good. Then I started to self-teach myself shading. Okay. And so I kind of got into that. And then I would say shortly after my first class, about 6 months, I was able to save enough money to take a shading class.
Were you making enough to support yourself?
I know for the first like 3-4 months, I was definitely struggling. Okay. Because starting out, and I had to pay $400, right? So when you have that like overhead, you're just like so much pressure is on you to at least make $400.
Yes, you're motivated.
Yeah, just to break even. But then I think after a while, because back then there weren't a lot of microblading artists in Bellingham that, because I was a marketing major, so the way I posted my pictures, the way I marketed it stood out in the field or the space, right, in Bellingham. And so I started to gain traction after that. But I know the first 6 months it was kind of rough.
So you were getting clients through Instagram?
Through Instagram, and then back then I would post models on Facebook groups. And this is a tip that I learned from, other permanent makeup Facebook groups to post on, join these Facebook groups that are in your area that are for moms.
Okay.
Yeah, that are for lashes, hairstylists and stuff. So especially the moms, because they're busy, right? Yes. They're busy with their kids and all that stuff, and offer it at a discounted price. And then I would also reach out to hairstylists and nail techs and lash artists around that area, offer it at like a discounted price, because those people, they see multitudes of clients each day. So it becomes like a domino effect, even if you work for free, right?
Yes.
It tends to pay back later on.
So you would reach out them online, or you would just go to
Instagram? And I would go to salons too.
And yeah. I think that's awesome. That's like networking, and you don't really compete. You can send clients to them.
Yeah,
they can help you out.
Yeah,
I think that's an awesome idea.
Yeah. So walked around the salons with like business cards and stuff. And I was like a very awkward person back then. So before I would go, I would like sit in the car and I would be like stressed out. But
and were they friendly, or
some of them were, and
some of them were not?
But like, I would say the hairstylists, people were friendly, but I think just the receptionists sometimes, they were just kind of confused. Like, oh, what are you doing? Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll put this on the board, But no, there was nobody that was like weird out or being like mean or anything.
And do you think that really helped, like doing that networking? Did that really help?
I think back then, yes.
Okay.
I think back then it helped a lot, because word of mouth back then was like everything. More. I mean, it still is, yeah. But now I think with the power of like TikTok and Instagram and Reels and all these things, that that is taking more of a focus on like, more than word to mouth. I feel like for my profession, yeah. But yeah, that back then it definitely helped a lot. It because back then Instagram wasn't like, whoa, this thing, and Reels weren't a thing, right? And so a lot of them wouldn't get their eyebrows done, which was understandable because I was so new. But then they kind of knew of me, and so when their clients would be like, oh, do you know where I can get my eyebrows done? Okay, I'm kind of looking to get microbladed. Then that's when my name would pop up. And so at the beginning I did a lot of free work, and I felt like it was just like, oh my god, this is never ending. I'm just like going into more debt, but it ended up paying back because it, my name started spreading really fast in Bellingham.
How much time do you think it took to really see the results of what you were doing, especially with this free work, working non-stop?
I would say for me, for my journey, it took me about like 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah. 6 months is when I started to feel more confident in my work. And also clientele was coming in. But yeah, I would say 6 months. But then again, I was like up day and night doing the marketing.
Like what, 7 days a week?
Yeah. I mean, I would finish school pretty much. And then I would go to work. If I had clients, if I didn't have clients, I would work on like my website or do marketing or, whatever that you needed to do for the
That's
business.
Amazing.
Yeah, I did a lot, and now I'm like all burnt out.
And you still do a lot.
Yeah, I feel like I'm not doing as much.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what did you do after 6 months? You started feeling confident. What happened next?
So that's when I took like another training, and I actually went to Vietnam at the time. Okay. So I was traveling back to Vietnam that year. It was 2018. And I took a class in Vietnam, and it was 7 days, and it was pretty much like 9-10 hours each day. And so I got to learn eyeliner, lips, and eyebrows, shading, all machine work, from this trainer. And she was like amazing. She's like the best trainer I've ever had. She's very, very like stern. Insulting sometimes. Yeah. But I love it. As an immigrant, I'm like, insult me
sometimes
more.
You need it.
I need it, yeah. Versus a trainer who's like, oh, that looks great. You're doing great. When I know I'm not, Yeah. She was like, what are you doing? That looks horrible. Fix your hand. I'm like, okay.
Okay. And how much was that?
I think that was like only like 4,000 or 5,000 for 7 days.
Oh,
yeah,
that's pretty.
It's a very good deal.
One-on-one, or?
I mean, it was a group class.
Okay.
Yeah. She was like very well known, but comparing that to like a 7-day class.
Yeah, of course.
I don't think it was even 5. I think it was like 4-ish. Yeah. But I think it was totally worth it. I got to learn 3 techniques. And thank God I took that shading training, because when I self-taught myself shading, I was going like way too deep, like way too much pressure. And I didn't even know it. I was just like, oh, I'm going to self-teach myself.
Okay.
And then after I took the training, I realized, oh my God, I'm like going way, my hand is all off, my hand is all wrong. So that's why when I hear people like, oh, can I learn online? Can I learn from YouTube? I never recommend that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very bad.
Maybe you can start, but then
yeah, I mean, I would say like you need to at least get the fundamentals of permanent makeup in person training, and then you can do supplemental training online or self-teaching yourself certain techniques. But yeah.
Talking about classes and certifications, how to find a good one? There's so many out there.
Yes, there's so many.
So should be in person, right? At least when you're a beginner. When you're more advanced,
I would say like you can start leaning towards the online. Just depending on, let's say you learn lip blushing in person, and then you want to learn into lip neutralization. Maybe you can do the lip blushing first, get the fundamentals of how to stretch, how to hold the skin, all that stuff, and then do the supplemental online. And there's a lot of online like dark lip neutralization trainings out there too.
Okay, so how to find a good one?
How to find a good one?
Like, what would you pay attention at?
Yes, so I would see that's the thing. I think it's still a hard thing to find nowadays. A really, really great training.
Yes,
with
and
a great trainer.
It's very pricey.
It's very pricey, and you never. And I always say this to my students. Like, a person can be a good artist, but not a great trainer, right? Because being a trainer, being a teacher, it takes patience. It takes knowing how to adapt your teaching styles to their learning styles. So let's say like their learning style is more visual, and you're explaining to them, oh, make sure your hand is 90 degrees, without actually showing your hand being 90 degrees. They're like, what is she talking about? Yeah, right? True. And it's knowing how to, as a trainer, you have to know how to read like their body language. If they're giving you a confused look, then, and some students are really shy to even say anything. So you might say, do you have a question? So that's still a hard thing. And then also learning the trainer's personality, right? Like I said before, some trainers are more impatient, some are more, I don't want to say like money hungry, but once they take your money, they're not going to go out of their way to help you, right? Some are like that. Yeah. So I would say, one, look at reviews on the trainer. If she has like a review tab on her Instagram or something, look at that, and DM or email. Okay. Yeah. And me, even now to this day, when I go to trainings, I act like I don't know anything. I act like I haven't been doing this, so I can come in with an open mind. Okay. And when I send them that email in regards to, am I going to get a certification? What is the machine that you're going to be giving us? Do you have a picture of it? How many models do we get to do? What will we learn exactly in techniques? I ask I'm a very annoying student. Because I ask all these questions. And then you can see how they react when you ask these questions. It's almost an indicator of how they're going to act.
Oh, that's a good one.
When you are in class. Because if they're not nice and patient to you before they take your money, they're definitely not going to be nice and patient to you after they take your money. True. Yeah. And so I would always say, like, DM them or email them, and invest in like a good training, making sure you look at their work. I think that looking at their work and making sure their work is good, it's just like a tip of the iceberg thing. But yeah, looking at their work, looking at their reviews, and
do you ask what pigments they use?
Yeah, you can ask anything.
Do they even tell you? Because I kind of feel like a lot of people would
like not tell you.
Yes.
Yeah. See, that's the thing about like some trainers. They like to call like what we call gatekeeping. Yeah.
But you think it should be
I think
open information.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. I mean, I don't care. I actually had a student call me today, or a prospect student, and she like called me because she searched up like Seattle permanent makeup supplies, and my name popped up. But I don't sell supplies. I don't sell numbing cream. I sell my own supplies. Yeah. And then she started asking me about training and like what pigments I use and where do I get my supplies, and I just told her everything. And she was like, oh, I really appreciate that, because I'm like, well, when you get into the nitty gritty of it, you know, there are like, the beauty industry is monopolized by only a couple brands, you know.
True.
From pigments, there's like 3 to 4 brands of pigments. That's it, you know. So what does it really matter, you know? Because once that student gets into the industry, if she does her research, she's gonna know about those brands anyway. So there's nothing to gatekeep. I think it's all depending on your like skill.
Yes, exactly. And your knowledge.
Yeah. So I think like trainers who gatekeep, I'm kind of like, it's kind of icky. Like, are you, you know, if you're confident in your skill, like why gatekeep, pretty much, you know.
And how many days you think a good training would be?
I think training has to be at least 3 days. Yeah. And I have a lot of students who ask me, or a lot of potential students who ask me like, oh my gosh, training is only 3 days for permanent makeup? That's crazy. I think you're right. It is kind of crazy, because when you think of esthetician, it's like months, right? Or cosmetologist, they're months. But you also have to keep in mind those trainings are like thousands and tens of thousands of dollars, right? So I, you know, back then I would think the same, but as I became a trainer myself, I started to realize, like, because the permanent makeup, the price of the procedure is so high in value, if a permanent trainer were to teach you for 5 days and only charge you $3,000, she would make more money if she were to just do clients.
True.
Clients with less stress, less responsibility, because teaching is a lot, you know. So without preparing the kids or anything like that. And so I think 3 days, it's honestly probably the best you can get.
3 days.
If you can afford to pay more, 4 to 5 days, I would say go for it. But make sure that you are okay with paying a higher price too. Because those 4 to 5 days training, I expect them to be $4,000 to $5,000. So you can guesstimate around $1,000 a day for training for permanent makeup is normal. Yeah.
How many days do you offer?
I offer 3 days for my fundamentals, and then I have an online version over 35 hours where they would learn all the theory, all the color theory, how to map visually with videos, and then they would come in person 3 days, and then I would pretty much hone in on their skills in person. Yeah, I can give them constructive criticism, and then that's when they do their model as well.
Do you support them after?
Yeah, so with my studio, it's a smaller studio, so I can only take about 2 students at the time. But if they want to come in and shadow me, they totally can. Unlimited amount of times.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I offer that. It's just up to them to message me and be like, hey, can I come in on this day? You know?
Do you still take classes yourself?
Yeah, I do. I always take classes myself. So the most recent one I took was in Dallas. I flew to Dallas to learn fine line tattoos.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so that was like last year. But I learned from this fine line tattoo artist. He's like amazing. And so after I did that, I flew back, did my clients, and then now getting into teaching fine line tattoo.
Okay, and you also offer it as a service, right?
Yes, I offer it as a service.
How is it different from permanent makeup? How do you feel about it?
I say that it's easy and then it's hard in a way.
Okay.
I don't know how to like explain it. So it's easy in terms of like the design, right? Because we're doing smaller pieces. So usually with smaller pieces, our clientele is mostly female. And so female clients, they're like, oh, I want this or I want this. They'll send you a picture from Pinterest or some reference picture. So you know exactly what they want. It's very easy. There's no designing. There's no like really thinking into it. Whereas brows, you're like mapping someone's face, you know?
Shades, colors.
Yeah, exactly. And so the artistic side is more like simple. But the technical side is more hard, because when you pull a line on a tattoo versus lining an eyebrow, I say it's like night and day. Because when you pull a line for a tattoo, you're in the skin. The needle's in the skin the whole time. Whereas when you're lining eyebrows, you're kind of like feathering it, right? And so because you're feathering it and it's so light, you're working so much lighter in the dermis than an actual tattoo, that it like there's room for error. And then you're filling it in also.
So it's more forgiving.
It's more forgiving for permanent makeup.
Yeah.
But for tattoo, it's less forgiving.
Okay.
Yeah, and you're working with tattoo ink, so it's like once you dot it, it's like there. It's not like permanent makeup where you build it up in layers and you know, you work over it and then it fades, right? Because the pigment we use is less permanent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you estimate how much you invested in your education over years?
Estimate? Okay. I've taken, I would say like just education.
Yeah.
I'd say like 20 to 30,000, I would say, because I've been doing this for 5 years, since 2018. Yeah. So 5 years, and I take at least 2 trainings each year. Every 6 months I try to take a training, and then sometimes supplementing it with online training, smaller online trainings, and each training is like 3,000.
Do you go to conferences?
I have not gone to a conference.
Okay.
I really do want to. There's a really big
expensive,
one.
Yeah.
There's a really big one in Las Vegas,
Yeah.
I've heard. Yeah. I do want to go to that, but I'm like, do I want to go to a conference where it's like there's so much going on, you know?
Okay.
Yeah, and then it's watching someone do a procedure, you know, and I guess granted you do get to see a lot of different procedures.
Yes.
For the price of like one class, right? Because it's around $3,000 to $4,000 for a conference.
Yes, but I guess if you want more, you have to pay more. So.
Yeah, exactly. And so I guess for me, I just always like was more appealed to like more intimate classes than like big conference. To me, I feel like a conference is good to like go networking.
Yes.
To me, that's what it is. You're not going to a conference to really learn the technique. Yeah, you can learn, you can watch them, but, you know, but nothing beats like a class.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. So I think for me, like if I get to that point where I'm like, okay, I want to go network with other permanent makeup artists around the nation, then yeah, we'll do it.
Okay.
Yeah. But I still haven't gone to one yet.
Okay, maybe you will.
I know. My dream is to speak at a conference.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Hopefully later.
So that's about 30,000 in education.
In education, yeah.
What about so how much do you think would be a basic starter kit for permanent makeup artist?
Like for supplies or for training?
Supplies, the machine, everything.
The machine.
To start it out.
Yeah. Beds and everything. So you have nothing. Like you're starting with nothing.
Okay, I have nothing.
Okay, you have nothing. Okay. I would say like 3,000 to 5,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's with the machine, pigments,
that's with the machine,
everything.
pigments and everything, without the class. Like let's say you took the training and you know your class already gives you a machine. That helps.
Do they usually give one?
They do, usually.
Is it a good one?
Not all the time.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it just depends on, and with the machine you have to do like that extensive research too. If you want, because a lot of machines are white labeled.
Okay.
Yeah. So they buy from a supplier overseas and then they label it, right? Which is fine, but you know, like if you really want to hone in on like the made in USA machines, those are like upwards of like $1,000, right? So that's no trainer is going to give you that.
Oh yeah, of course.
They would have to charge you like $5,000 for the class, you know. So I understand why they do that. I mean, so yeah, I would say like after training and if you want to get all your supplies and everything, like 5,000.
Would you use the same machine for eyes, eyebrows, and lips, or it has to be all different kinds?
I would say you can use the same. It depends on the machine, but I would say you can use the same. I think it's all in the technique, honestly. A lot of people emphasize when they first get into permanent makeup about the machine. I'm like, oh my god, I gotta make sure I have the perfect machine that's like the best of the best. But it really just matters. It's your hand.
Yeah.
Your hand is the one guiding the machine, right? And so it just depends.
That is true.
So a lot of my students would be like, oh, and marketing is everything. And there's a really famous brow artist in the beauty in the brow community, right? And you know, he'll come out with a new machine, and then my students are like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get his machine, because it's like the way he markets is amazing, I do have to say.
So you don't need to do anything.
Yeah,
you
I'm
just
like,
buy it.
he's just like an amazing marketer from a marketing standpoint. His graphics are amazing, and so my students will be like, oh, I want to buy his machine, and then I'll be like, well, it's up to you if you want to try it. I always encourage my students to try everything, like $300-$400. I think something like that. And I always encourage my students to try everything, but I say, you know, be careful of the marketing, because the permanent makeup, the industry, the marketing is everything, right?
And just beauty.
Yeah, just beauty in general, right?
Beauty and fashion.
And so like they'll buy the machine, even though I'm like, it might not be the best machine, it might just look good, and they'll buy it and they'll realize, oh yeah, I don't really love it, I'm gonna like try to sell it. And I see it a lot on Facebook groups too. The hype is really real. Like, I think permanent makeup beauty industry, hype is everything. Yeah. Hype is like, if it's hype, like everyone's gonna go into it, from this trainer, from this Instagram famous trainer. Yeah, but to like really research the mechanical and everything, that's
so do you research always?
I always research. Yeah.
How many clients do you see a day?
Like total or new clients, or
just total?
Just total. I see like 3 or 4. Okay. Yeah, it just depends on if they're new or if they're like a touch up.
Do you see a lot of new clients?
I do see a lot of new clients. Yeah, I think there's like slow seasons and busy seasons. So slow seasons are like right in the middle of summer. No one's getting their eyebrows done. Okay. Because the aftercare for it is just crazy.
Yeah. And also vacations.
Vacation. They don't know, their kids are out. And then busy seasons are like spring, I would say. Spring. Because people get their tax returns. Oh. So they got that money. Okay. People got that disposable money, right? And then so they'll go, or like going back to school, like fall. Yeah. Also, another slow season is right after Christmas, because it's like people don't have money. Yes. Yeah, that's what I've noticed. Because it is such a high price procedure that like it is, people don't have that to spend.
It is, and it takes time.
It takes time, like the pre-care and then the aftercare, and then coming back, right? I understand it's a lot.
It is. So how do you find clients now? I guess again, Instagram, social media.
Yeah. So making sure my website and my SEO is really top notch, like making sure like everything is super clear, super concise. And then on Instagram, yeah, I don't run ads or anything, but Instagram and TikTok.
Do you do everything yourself, social media?
I do everything myself, and that's why I haven't posted on Instagram in like 2 months.
That's okay.
I'm so slacking on that. It's so bad.
Don't you think the permanent makeup market is getting oversaturated?
I think it's getting oversaturated in terms of numbers of artists. But numbers of good or great artists, it's still the same. I would say it's still like relatively low, because it is like a hard skill to acquire, you know. I think
and it's not for everyone, and it takes, I guess,
it's not every time. Yeah, it takes time and like dedication and really like honing in and practicing. And I tell my students this, like, I'm like, okay, make sure you do that. It's like a muscle memory type of work. It's not like you do it once and then you like look at this pamphlet and there's the steps and you just follow the steps. No, everything is muscle memory, from the way you hold the machine to the way you stretch the skin, right? And so if you don't practice it even for a week, you're gonna forget it. And so, but not everyone nowadays like wants to practice every day or put in the dedication to do that, you know. And so,
and it's hours and hours and hours.
It's hours, yeah. It takes a lot of time. I mean, otherwise it wouldn't cost $700.
That's right? True, and it's a lot of responsibility.
A lot of responsibility, yeah.
Have you ever had difficult situation with a client?
Yeah,
can you tell?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us have had
Yeah.
difficult situations with clients, right, in the beauty industry.
But again, permanent makeup,
especially permanent makeup.
Yeah, because it's permanent.
Yeah,
Semi-permanent.
when you like, I've had clients who, even though I have two types of difficult clients. One is the pre-procedure difficult client. Okay. Like, she didn't read any of the pre-care, but she'll come in and she has all the...
What is your pre-care?
My pre-care is pretty long, but it's like, you can't be diabetic, pregnant, blood thinners, right? Drinking coffee, all this stuff. Even though I do take clients who drink coffee accidentally, I just know, hey, you might need to spend one more procedure, like one more touch-up. But stuff like that, Accutane and stuff. Yeah. So they won't read it, and I had this lady, who came in, and she didn't read any of the pre-care, and she drove from like more farther than Tacoma, all the way to Ballard. And she came in, and she filled out the form. I was like, okay, fill out the form. And the first thing I saw was she clicked yes on diabetic. Oh. And me making that mistake for my first client, I'm very traumatized from working on diabetic clients. And so I say, oh, you're diabetic? And she was like, yeah, but I have tattoos all over me, body tattoos. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, but there's a list of contraindications that if you're diabetic, you can't get this done because you bleed. And she kept repeating, but I have tattoos all over me. And I was like, but we don't work as deep as a tattoo. We work above it. So everything matters when you do permanent makeup. Because if I'm going super deep in the skin, the pigment's going to be there anyways, And I was like, and we don't want your brows to turn blue like your tattoos did. And so that's why we don't go as deep. And she was like, this is ridiculous. I drove all the way from da-da-da-da. And I'm like, well, I also drove because I live about 40 minutes from my work. And
you're also not making any money.
Yeah, and then I had an hour, 3-hour gap, And then she was like, and at that point, that was my first encounter where I was like, whoa, this is a lot. Like, she just needs to get out of my store, know? And so then I was like, you know what? I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do, but I can't take you unless you have a doctor's note. And normally I wouldn't even refund the deposit, but I was like, I'm just gonna refund you your deposit, like, no worries on that. And yeah, she left and she was very, very mad. Yeah. And then the other type of difficult client I have is one who's like difficult after the procedure. Even though I don't get a lot of those, they'll want to come in and fix like a very little thing, or their eyebrows are still really dark, but they want to come in for a touch-up. And my first mistake when I first started out was like, I did do those clients. I didn't say no at all. And some of those clients, their brows, it turned more like ashy color, or it didn't fade, and
because it was too much
pigment, right? And I didn't learn back then about pigment retention, how your skin is like a sponge. It can only absorb so much. And so I just kept being like, yeah, I'll touch you up, and then and now I'm like, oh shit, this looks bad. Wow. And so those my clients now, I'm very stern. I'm like, hey, if it's not faded 70-80%, I'm not going to touch it up. Okay. And they'll get kind of upset, like, oh, but I'm filling it in, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing that, and it's still really like light. And I'm like, well, permanent makeup is low maintenance. It's not no maintenance. You still have to fill in your eyebrows if you want that like dark look. It's only so dark that we can do on your skin, you know? Because I think people forget that. I think because the name is permanent makeup, they forget that it's a tattoo, when in reality it is a tattoo, you know. And tattoo, it's in the skin, it's not on the skin like makeup.
That's true.
So those are the only types of difficult clients I would encounter.
So do you have any employees, or it's just you?
It's just me right now. I'm trying to expand. I'm looking for places to expand, to go to a bigger studio, and hopefully getting some employees, especially, or apprentices especially for fine line tattoos, because I need help in that, as it's getting really busy. So I would love some help, and bring in some people to the team who do different styles of tattooing, not just fine line. Do you have any experience with employees? So I did have an employee before, and trained them pretty much from the beginning up. And then I think after a certain amount of time, employees, it's just a natural thing to want to, expand and fly off and expand their wings, right? And so they did that. And so that's why, that was recently too, just the last couple months. And so it's just me right now, but hoping to get more employees later.
You will. Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
It's always hard though, finding employees.
That was my next question about. So how to find a good one?
Yeah, that is a hard thing to do. And I think a lot of people in the beauty industry who are beauty solo entrepreneurs can probably relate. After doing your procedure for so many years, you start to realize, and maybe it's just me, but you start to have this thought of like, is this my life? Am I going to be doing this for the rest of my life? And everybody wants to scale, right? Make more money and do less work, right? But the only way to do that is like automation, or having people work for you. And like finding a good employee is hard because a lot of employees have the mentality of, if I go solo, I'll make more money because I'm here, I'm working commission, and the boss is taking 40% of what I make, But a lot of employees or people, they don't keep in mind of the overhead that the boss has to pay, the rent and the insurance and supplies, because as an employee, if you're an employee, you just go in and work and then you come home and you don't have to worry about anything.
You don't need to manage.
You don't need to manage anything.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. And it's not just paying for the overhead, it's also managing the back end of stuff. What do you do if there's a customer complaint?
Oh, yeah.
What do you do when a client asks to reschedule but you didn't look at the email for 3 days? That's on the boss. That's on the store,
Yes.
or the company. And so finding an employee who appreciates what the owner does and is also self-aware of themselves in that, like, they know that they cannot have that responsibility, so they would just love to just come in and work and not have to deal with all the back end stuff. I think that's a great employee, but that's also a unicorn. Yeah. And I think it just takes experience, because I know a lot of people who are hairdressers or like that do beauty, and they did that route where they did solo. Okay. And then they realized, okay, I want to work at a store. Like and then they went back to working as an employee. I think those are the people that are very rare to get, but they are like the prized possession,
They exist.
They exist.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And
takes time, but still.
It takes time.
It's possible.
Yeah. But I think with like the two industries that are hardest is to find employees is, I feel like, permanent makeup and lashes. I feel like lashes and permanent makeup are extremely hard to find employees in.
Lashes, I can see why.
Yeah.
Well, permanent makeup as well.
I think it's lashes you can do at home. So people are just
with lashes, maybe I'm wrong, but I kind of feel like you can still make more if you work for yourself.
Yeah.
So the equipment is not that expensive. It's just your skill.
Yeah, it's just a skill.
With permanent makeup, you need to constantly find clients, like marketing, managing. It's a little different story.
Yeah, permanent makeup is definitely harder to stay afloat if you're by yourself and you don't know what you're doing.
What would you change in the beginning of your career of a permanent makeup artist? Is there anything you would do differently?
What would I change? That's a hard question.
Well, I have another one. I think it's even harder.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I think, like, now that I think back at it, I definitely wouldn't self-teach myself.
You wouldn't?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I think I would just...
Why?
Go self-teach myself shading, I think. Because I didn't know how to gauge pressure. I would just do everything with a trainer, and I wouldn't try to save money or anything like that. That's what I would do.
Because I guess it takes more time.
Yeah, and once you self-teach yourself and you become engulfed in this and you never take a training, you build these bad habits.
Yeah.
And you're like locking in your muscle memory to these bad habits. And so it took me more of a time to undo my pressure, undo those bad habits that I learned self-teaching myself after I took the training. Because I was like, oh my God, I'm going back to my old habit. I need to not do that.
Yes.
And so if I could go back, that's one thing I would change. Other than that, I wouldn't change anything.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Only
So
one
I
thing.
feel like I struggle, but because I struggle, I was able to get to myself to where I am today. I think if I had it super easy and everything, I would just be falling off right now and just like slacking off.
Yeah. The next difficult question, maybe the last one. Where do you see yourself in 10 years? Like career-wise?
That's so hard to answer. Oh my gosh. I feel like my dream, just as a person, is to live on a country like Bali or Vietnam and do like a online business. That's what I would love to do. Maybe it's training. Maybe it's training for permanent makeup, or maybe it's like e-commerce or something like that, or like coaching. But I think because I've been doing it for 5 years now, I can't imagine doing the service for another 10 years just because it's a lot on your body, you know? Like I have scoliosis, so my back is already pretty fucked up.
Well, we're all getting old.
Yeah, and so I'm like working and then everything, like my back just hurts and it's a lot of hours. Like now, I just recently reduced my hours. I was working 11 to 8 before.
6 days a week.
Yeah, 6 days.
You're
5 days
crazy.
a week, yeah. And then now I'm working 11 to 6 because I'm like, it's summer. I need to go out and see.
Well,
the sunlight.
barely summer, but
Yeah,
okay.
it's barely summer. But just for my sanity, you know? And then, so hopefully in 10 years, I'm hoping to step away from servicing people and more doing something online or having an online business where I can help people, whether that's mentoring permanent makeup artists or beauty professionals or selling something. But I would love to just have a store being, you know, run by itself.
Yeah.
Or managing the store. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think you will get there.
I hope so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you will.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should wrapping up, and it was very interesting.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you.
I think you're an amazing businesswoman.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh,
It was a very interesting experience and I loved it.
not that bad, right? Okay. Good. Thank you very much. Okay.